my name is Lindsay, and welcome to our 35th webinar. Today, we will be talking specifically about how data can drive sales on your website and what type of data to look out for and how to analyze it. Um, Last week, we did do more about social media and social media advertising, how that looks, and specifically paid social media advertising and also free. We did mention that a couple times here and there. But overall, it's putting your spending dollars into social media and how that looks like. Last week, more about social media. And then this week, we're going to talk more about specifically data on your website and also other supplementary websites such as Google Analytics and apps that you can utilize for your website. Um, the idea is to either lead to, there's different objectives, of course, when we're talking about data and how that's going to help you at the end of the day. So for data, it could either help you either lead to more sales if you want more of a larger customer base. There are many ways to interpret the data, and here I kind of want to talk about where you can find that data, um, ways you can analyze the data, and then from there, how can it help you improve on driving sales on your print-on-demand store. So without further ado, we could get started. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Going into it, the idea is just to help you with managing your operations and product offerings and what you can do with the given data at hand to help you, just have better sales at the end of the day or, whatever objective you may have. I'm just here to present where you can find that data, optional ways to observe it, and so on and so forth. If you have any questions along the way, do let me know. I'll try to answer them to the best of my ability. Thank you. So one of the first things I kind of want to talk about is how you can understand your customer better. And one of the ways you can understand your customer better and their behavior specifically is figuring out where they're clicking on your website. And one of the ways you can do that is using heat maps. And what heat maps are is that they help you visualize where people are clicking more often than other places. It lets you, one, know where people's interest is, or two, where they want to learn more about something. So if it's on a product that is very particular, say it's on your catalog and there's a specific um, a place where it's very hot comparison to other places, then you know that's a place of interest. You can always then in turn compare this to what your best sellers are, see if there is any correlation or maybe if there is a differentiation between the two, then what's causing that. Um, Here I'm using a home page here that I made up with whimsical animals just as an example. And here is kind of a makeshift heat map. But the idea is that you can then see, all right, well, what are the photos? What are the places my customers touching on upon? And which places are they, not as popular, at as noticeable. And so from here, in turn, when you have this presented data in front of you, you can then in turn see, okay, well, where can I improve on? If people are coming to the search option a lot, it means that they're looking for a product. How can you make that product more readily available? Using specific apps, you can see then what is the most searched item on your store. Say it's a specific item that you have sold in the past or a specific item that you have, often what's the word? Promoted on your websites or your social media accounts, then how can you make it more readily available as opposed to them having to search it up? If you notice a lot of clicks on a particular product on the homepage, that's great. Then that means keeping it there a little bit longer because people are clearly, using that to get into the next purchase step. But this is just one example of a heat map, and this is not going to be applicable to everyone where the most searched hot or the more popular hotspots are the search, sale, and products on the homepage. It could be the contact page. It can be the homepage. It could be, a promotion or a discount offer. So the heat maps at least let you know what your customers are tuned with and more interested in. Down below, I suggested a couple of apps that are add-ons to your website that you can utilize, which is Hotjar and Mouseflow. They'll help you alongside with other things such as suggestions thereafter with what you have for your hotspots. But overall, these are two apps that are very useful for this and to utilize for hotspots in particular. At the moment, I don't think you can run it on any specific area of a website that isn't yours. So this would be an add-on that you could add on to your own website, as far as I know. This is just a message asked if you could run a heat map on Etsy or Walmart. Um, so just note that it's not applicable to other websites that might not be of your own. Of course, if there are out there, I don't know how trustful they can be, just because that is kind of data that is sort of privatized, so keep that in mind. Okay. From here, we can talk about uh, insights and segmentation, and more so, this is something you can grab from your Shopify or your store in general. If you have a customer list or a sign up list, um, for the most part, if you have their addresses, can be easy to figure out using Excel, or sometimes even the website itself gives you this map. But for me, I use Shopify, and then in turn, I also utilize Excel to create this density of where my customers are. So utilizing, I believe, around 300 of the addresses I had, I removed their personal address and I just kept it to the states. And I just made note if there was repetitive cities, but from my observation, there was not. So I just kept it to states. And from states, I then created a chart on Excel, and there I was able to use the map option in Excel, which if you are somewhat familiar with Excel, there is ways to make graphs and ways to make visuals. And one of the ways to do it is you can make a map visual. As long as your data is opted as regional based data, you should be able to create something like this within 5 or 10 minutes at most. Um, but from our observations here, you can see that for the most part, I have a big popularity amongst people in the Southwest and South and West area. What that helps me to do from here on is if there is a high density there, that means that one, should cater more to them, and two, figure out how to then make products that could then in turn make them make a bigger purchase or buy something secondary to what they initially came to the store for. For example, if my biggest region is California, and that could be by proxy of being local to that place in general. So I am appealing to people local to my state. Maybe the imagery that I propose is local to California or is popular amongst Californians. Then if I feel like I want to expand my product line horizontally, then I could then look into what imagery or what items is popular at the moment within my region or within the region that is of high density with customers. Because the idea is that your customers are already there and they already have um, intent to buy, or they're more likely to buy than a customer or a possible customer that has never purchased before. So the further you cater to them, the better. Doesn't mean you should get yourself into kind of a hole of just catering just to them, but it would make sense then to do every couple of products, make sure it's more geared towards them or geared towards a specific region. And then, of course, this is stuff you can find in generally in your store. We'll go into more specific data later, but generally, I kind of want to break down product performance here. And one of the ways you can look at products is, of course, looking at your best sellers, and that's kind of the topical or very top of the funnel version of how you can interpret your data is seeing what sold the best, and that is very helpful. But the other data that I think is just as important, if not will help you make more poignant decisions, is looking at timeline of the sales of a bestseller and also looking at the metadata. And there's other things to take into consideration. So for this one, screenshot, for example, so for here, I noted that the most sold item was a pug, and then the second most sold was also the winter framed paper print. Um, Should be of note though that one has a long year longevity to it, whereas the other one, the winter frame paper print, is more suited for Christmas or winter. And so if you have that kind of situation where you do have bestsellers, but you notice that, oh, there's a specific seasonality to them, then it's worth looking to see if it should just be for a specific time of the year that you have that product on your store. Because what you don't want to do is saturate your website with products that aren't relevant to that time and place for your customer. Um, Another thing is to see, for example, my Detective Rabbit shirt, it only sold 43. However, what we don't know is how long has it been selling in comparison to the others. For the most part, I think looking at your data in 90-day intervals is a pretty good utilization of this. And if you want to have a good gauge of your product and how it's doing, 3 months is pretty good and pretty solid. Any longer than that, the data might become irrelevant. Any shorter than that, it might not capture a good read of your product. Another good way to read your data is if you do it within a specific advertisement campaign or campaign where you are specifically promoting a product. So those are different situations, and of course, there are different parameters to how you interpret your bestsellers. Um, what tool is used for product performance analysis? Yeah, so there are different ways to do it, and for the most part, your website's backend should be pretty useful for this. So if you are on Etsy or if you are on Shopify, there should be an analysis for which products have the best sellers, and then you should be able to see then at what point in time these products were sold. And then, of course, with everything else, this would have to be a little bit of grunt work on our own end to look at the data and then see from here what is, useful for you to understand about your products and your best sellers in particular. Um, and, we'll get into also later about items that are complementary to each other and items that you can then in turn make it more apparent for your customer when they're buying said product, then, going ahead and adding in the secondary product to encourage them to buy both. So in here, I do have some items that will help you, and these are in turn search engines or search items that you can have on your website, as well as them helping the overall algorithm of your store's products. Even Shopify's search and discovery is useful because even though it's free, it's more likely to note and pick up on what your customers are looking at after, and then in turn will then suggest it to other customers. When we're talking about customer preferences and purchase history, there are apps that can help you understand your items a bit better and understand who's buying what and understanding then what are the most searched items, what are the items your people are most likely to buy in conjunction with the other. And so down here, I suggested Smart Product Filter and Search, Boost AI Search and Filter, and Shopify Search and Discovery, the last one, of course, being free. And so with these products to offer, um, you know, you can then utilize secondary apps to help with this type of aspect of your website. And then we can then go into the essential analytic tools. And here we'll talk more about the tools that I use personally and you can use as well. And from here, we can look at how the data might look. So if you don't have a Shopify or you don't have Google Analytics yet, then this is a small preview of what that stuff might look like for you. So for Google Analytics, I think if you don't have it already, it's a really powerful tool to use. And for the most part, I think that this you could start freely here and see how it works for you. I think at a later point they might start charging you for it, but I think at the beginning, at the very least, it is free. Um, and this is just so you kind of understand where your searches or how people are going to your website. And that's very important because if you aren't doing paid advertisement yet, as an example, you want to know if it's returning customers or customers who are looking you up. If you see that there is a very small percentage of people using the organic search, then that might be noted that it's hard to find you via the search engines. And so just for reference, direct search is searches they didn't really have to search you per se, but they just typed up the URL to your website and went to it or bookmarked it on their own search engine and then just click on it directly. Organic search is when they use search engines such as Google, Yahoo, or Bing to find your website. Paid other or paid is when sorry, paid other is when visitors come through your website via ads or Google or elsewhere. Um, and then lastly, the referral is they come from a website after clicking a link, and it's usually not paid or it isn't paid. So this could be someone like tagging your website after they found a product. So there are different ways that people can reach to your website. And if you feel like there's one that's severely lacking, or if there's one that you feel like there should be more of, at the very least, you have that information with you. So you can either figure out, oh, well, do I need to start putting ad money towards my towards advertisement on Google? Or should I be linking my website more often on my social media accounts, and how can I make that more apparent and more visually upfront? And then for referrals, then is there ways that you can have people review and link your website? So this is non-traditional or more so affiliate marketing. And then of course there's also engagement. So beforehand we are talking more about acquisition and where your people are coming from or visitors are coming from. And now it's more so about engagement retention, and this data is also very useful. Specifically because it'll let you know how people are interacting with your website and how long people are staying there. And that's particularly useful because if you realize that people are spending a long time on your website but aren't making a purchase, then it could then be suffice to say that they're interested in your products, but there's something that is a pain point that might not be letting them stay there enough to make the purchase. Um, if you notice that there isn't a lot of engagement, that people tend to click off of your website rather quickly, and you're not getting a lot of sales, then there is something at the forefront that's making them want to leave after the homepage, or there's something that could be improved to have them reach to the interested product in question faster. Um, and then what's also very useful is that they have different types of event names. So you have how long they're looking at a page, how long they're interacting with something. So this could be clicking on things, this could be searching on the search bar, this can be toggling through different imagery. But the idea is that they're actually clicking on things and not just scrolling through your website. Um, I'll also let you know who's a first visitor, a first time visitor. And so if you notice you're getting a lot of one time or first time visitors, then what can be then done to encourage them to then make a purchase? And if you notice that you have more first time customers than returning customers, then it's more apt to opt for a discount for first time buyers as opposed to loyalty discounts. You could do both, of course. But the idea is that if you notice a high surge in one or the other, it'll let you know from here then how often or how you want to do your discounts or how you want to encourage people making it to the last purchase or making it to the checkout. And of course, then we could get into Shopify in particular as well and their analytics. And as I told you before, their the analytics on the back end of websites are very useful. And at the beginning and or the topical way of reading this data is, you can look at this stuff and be like, okay, I know what my bestseller is, or okay, this many customers visited my store today. And that could be useful, sure, but then we need to ask questions thereafter that will help you understand and how to use this data to best serve your customers or best drive up sales. Um, One of the examples here is that I'm noticing a high cart abandonment. So people are adding stuff to their cart, people are interacting with the items. However, they're not reaching to the point where they purchase something. So from there, I can then take into account, well, is the checkout area inconvenient for them? Am I not offering the right payment options? If my products are of high price point, then is it worth taking it, offering them paying in, I think PayPal, for example, does pay in four ways or pay in four times. Um, Or alternatively, you can offer a discount once they reach the checkout area specifically to encourage them to make that buy as they feel like, the discount won't be there forever. So just say limited time offer. Um, Another aspect is, if you do have a high influx of returning customers, then are you creating a loyalty program where they can then in turn get, points or towards a discount or points towards a free gift? So these are things to take into consideration and where you want to put your value and time and effort into. And then also, things to look at as well is your top selling products. How are all the products that are your best sellers doing in comparison to other products? It'd be great if all of your products are best sellers, but of course, that's not always the case. But once you know which ones are your best sellers, it's good then to create products that are similar or finding out what of those products was of use. So, what I personally would do in case of my top 5 products, for example, is I would look at the metadata for all of these products and see if there is any similarities between the 5 products. So if products 1 through 5, they all have animals on them, then I know that, okay, my customers seem to bode well with animal imagery, as opposed to if I had landscape or other options on my website. Um, Another thing to consider is, sizing as well. So, if we're looking at the size metadata, then what is the most popular size people are buying? If they tend to lean towards smaller purchases or smaller sizes and in turn smaller purchases, then how can you create more small art or art that makes sense on a small format and then offering it in those popular, well-bought sizes? So there's a lot of data to take from what is just a few numbers here on the screen. Um, and then, of course, then we can get into customer relationship management systems. And it's a lot of words to just say that this helps you understand your customer better. And it also, in turn, helps you make things a lot more swift and prompt for you and your customer service team. Or if the customer service team is you, then it'll give you more time to work on other things that are a bit more useful. Um, on the right, I listed HubSpot, ActiveCampaign, and Zoho. But there are other apps as well that are just as useful for you to, one, make automation with customer interactions a lot more seamless and a lot quicker. And one of the three, these are just 3 of the ways that these CRMs help you a lot. There are other ways as well, but the baseline for them is that they help with automated marketing or triggering emails or notifications or other forms of messaging during points of a person's, a customer's life cycle. And so if your customer leaves something abandoned in their cart, then that would then trigger this app to then send them an email about abandoned cart items or reminding them that it's still in their cart. Um, Another item could be if they're looking at a lot of specific products, say they're seeing a lot of products that have greenery or trees in them. Um, uh, this could then trigger the place to then send an email out with more of that item. So they're more inclined to then click on the email and, go through to see if they want to revisit some of the products again. Um, Salesforce automation, of course, it's there at the website actively looking at what your customer is doing, and it's looking at ways that it can encourage more purchases. So if you're ever on a website and you're like looking through, for example, Amazon, and you're looking for a specific product, then you'll be searching and searching, and eventually it'll start showing more of that product and more products that are within that price range that you're looking at and also complementary items to that product. So this type of Salesforce automation is very useful. Um, and could be implemented relatively easy, and it helps you have a bit more seamless interactions and support without being too hands-on. Because again, every customer is different, as we've discussed before. No customer is the same. However, if something is tracking how your customer is interacting with your website and makes decisions after that, then it can be very useful to leading to a purchase. And lastly, of course, contact center automation. I would be very specifically careful on this one in particular, only because chatbots are, one, they could be great, but on the other turn, they can't do what a human can do, and that is, provide thoughtful responses to things like, say, an unsatisfied customer or a customer that has questions on specifics that you might know, might not be on your website. And so this would be specifically for small, more tedious messaging, such as someone just wanting to know their tracking number, or someone wanting to know how much a product is, or if they're like, is this offered in a different color? And so these are questions that could easily be answered. However, as if you ever worked in customer service or you run your own customer service, messaging on your website, that they can kind of add up and it can be kind of, tedious to answer questions that can be quickly, automated or streamlined for you or your service team. And I think that once you kind of understand that kind of thin line between, utilizing chat box, but also making sure, you're also attentive to what your customers are asking about and inquiring about, you'll spend more time, talking to customers with pain points or specialized questions as opposed to general, statements such as, where can I find my package? Okay. And then overall, like it's going to give you more time to know how you can make sure your customers are satisfied at the end of the day and what you can do in turn to just, cater to them further. So just streamline that process for you. And then lastly, I kind of want to talk about like after all the data and after, if you're using ad dollars to put towards your store, how is that going to look and what type of data you want to, do with this. So this is kind of introductory. However, it is very important no matter how large or small your store is, and that is understanding the acquisition cost. And so, even if you're not spending ad dollars towards your acquisition costs, there's like, time loss and also your own expenses. And say you have a marketing team or you have someone on your team that's in charge of acquiring more customers, then, things like their shift or their, time as labor and your labor as well is important to take into consideration. And we need to quantify that data because at the end of the day, you want to see if the effort you're putting into certain actions or campaigns is, boding well and gaining customers or sales. So, for customer acquisition cost, it's important to kind of figure out how to estimate at the very least your advertisement cost or the cost of maintaining and acquiring customers. So this can be actual ads or it can be how much it costs for you as, your own worker to take time. Say you take 2 hours out of your day to work on social media or to promote your items elsewhere, or say you're doing a gallery and that's for the intent for people to come to your website. How are you then in turn spending that much amount of money and try to put that all together and put it into advertising costs. Thereafter, you then divide it by the number of customers I've gained in that period of time. Say it's a campaign or a specific frame of time. You'll acquire the CAC or the customer acquisition cost. For the most part, you want to keep this part low, like the percentage low. So the least amount of dollars per customer gained. You don't want to have to spend a lot to gain one customer. Um, and then secondly, you want to look at the customer's lifetime value. And while, we are, print-on-demand stores, oftentimes it is one-time purchases, but if you play your card right, you can have a reoccurring customer who's excited to either utilize you for their home or for gift giving or for special occasions and things of that sort. So creating a lifetime customer is really important in this case because if they purchase once from you, and they had a good experience, then they're more inclined to buy from you again. And so by calculating the CLV or the customer lifetime value, you can then in turn figure out, well, how much value am I getting out of a specific customer? And so by looking at the yearly average profit and the yearly average number of transactions, you can then multiply that by the customer's average lifetime, which if you're not 100% sure of their age group, 20 years is pretty decent. It's not as long as most people would think, but 20 years is a good range because, older people tend not to buy from the internet as much as people who are a little bit younger. So 20 years is a good baseline, but if you know your customer's demographic, then take that into consideration. If you know kind of their age group, then you can make this shorter or longer. But the idea is that you want to have a high customer lifetime value, a customer that will be reoccurring or at the very least make transactions over the period of time and do many of them or do a lot of high purchases. Um, Again, just a general base you want to know about is customer acquisition costs, keep it low. Customer lifetime value, you want to keep it relatively high. And if you find yourself where at odds where the customer acquisition cost is kind of high, then what can you do to save money for yourself while also figuring out how to then find ways to gain customers without spending so much time or money? And then in turn, for the customer lifetime value, what are you doing to encourage the longevity of your customer and or the returning profits of said customer? Because it's one thing to gain one customer, it's another thing to gain a lifetime customer or one who does multiple purchases. So that's the general basis of data that you can use and how you can interpret it. There's so many ways you can look at data at the end of the day and how it comes to you and how helpful it is for you. However, no data points are similar to another. You can't really Google what's a good data or what's a good number of customers I have. You have to kind of see for yourself, and that might require you looking at goals that you want to have at the end of the year in comparison to the beginning of the year. So say you start with 200 customers and your goal is to duplicate that or to double it. So you want to have 400 customers by the end of the year. Creating goals is very important when you're setting data and looking at it and analyzing it. Um, and then from there, you can kind of see then bestsellers. How many bestsellers do you want to have? If you have a top five, how many sales do you want to yield out of every bestseller? And then if you're noticing that there's not a lot of bestsellers, then how can you then kind of slim down your catalog so you have stronger sales in comparison to ones that don't get much traction? Um, so the data is something that is different for everyone, and the analysis, while might be kind of similar to everyone's, it really depends on where you are in your growth and where you are at in that place and time for your store. If you guys have any questions, do let me know. In the meantime, you guys could also suggest if there anything else you would like to see from these webinars. I know that this was a lot of information to go through. Hopefully some of it was useful or some of it was of interest. Um, I know that we'll be probably reaching the end of this webinar season soon, which will lead to a long break probably in April or May, but do keep in mind that we're always interested to see what you guys want to hear from us. I think we do come from a unique perspective of being people who help out small and large stores with getting their products through, as well as understanding, bestsellers and understanding what works for customers, what doesn't work. And we kind of talk to people kind of every other day about their stores and, their ventures into selling art online and print on demand online. But yeah, if there are no questions and you guys are good, we can end the webinar here. As always, if you missed any part of this webinar, we do have these on YouTube a bit after. And you could go ahead and check out our YouTube for our previous webinars as well. This is our 35th one, so we have a good amount of things over there for you. And we also talk about things relative to Lumaprints as well, such as product ordering, product process or order processing, how to utilize some of the templates we have. So we have a lot of interesting stuff there. And of course, if you have any questions, feel free to contact us at contact@lumaprints should you think of something in the meantime. But if there are no questions, I'll see you guys next week. And thank you, Harrison. Thank you, Tovo. See you guys next time. Bye.